Hey y'all, Rob here with ATX Legal, here with the next part of the DWI guide for 2023. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about drug-based DWIs. Now, there's actually not a separate statute in the law for drug DWIs. It's all under the same DWI statute. But what is at issue is the definition of intoxicated. So obviously, if someone's over 0.08, that's statutorily intoxicated, but there is no corresponding level for drug DWIs. The police have to show that a person was intoxicated by reason of some external substance that they've ingested. So, for example, if a person has lost their normal faculties, but it's just because they haven't had enough sleep that day, that's not enough to rise to a level of a DWI. Now, I'm not saying you should go out and drive after you haven't had enough rest, but it doesn't rise to the level of a DWI. Now, usually a drug DWI investigation begins if the police officer suspects that a person is intoxicated, but they either blow below a 0.08 on a breathalyzer so they know that alcohol is not the issue, or the person admits that, hey, I've had drugs earlier in the day, or if they do find drugs in the vehicle. Those are the typical ways that a drug DWI investigation begins. Now, at that point, what the officer is supposed to do is call out a DRE, or drug recognition expert. This is a person that has, I'm going to put it in quotes, training. And really, I'm just talking about 6 to 8 hours of training that they've gone through where they're supposed to be able to recognize the signs of someone who has ingested drugs. Now, it's essentially junk science. It's been tested, and it's a very low rate of success, something like 60%. So that would mean a 40% false positive rate on that. So it's not good science, but courts do allow this DRE to come and testify and say, look, I have this experience recognizing people who have ingested drugs. I can tell you if it's an opiate, if it's a stimulant, whatever it is. But it's based on very loose science, and it's, of course, not very defendant friendly. All this quote unquote science is designed to secure convictions. Now, usually in drug DWIs, they'll go ahead and get a warrant for your blood. They'll draw the blood and send it to the lab. Now, they send this to the DPS lab, which is separate from where they send the alcohol samples. And it does take a little bit longer. So you can expect a drug-based DWI to last a little bit longer. That process can go about a year as opposed to the 7 to 9 months that an alcohol DWI will usually take. Now, a drug DWI can be based, of course, on THC, which is marijuana. It can be based on opiates, stimulants, and it can be based on prescription drugs, even if you have a valid prescription. A lot of people have no trouble admitting to the police, hey, I'm on this for anxiety, whatever drug they're on, but most of those drugs can be linked to bad driving. If it's listed as one of the side effects of the drug that you shouldn't operate heavy machinery, it can count against you as far as a DWI. So always be careful when speaking to the police. Obviously, it's best just to not speak to them, but if you do talk to them, be careful about admitting even prescription drugs that you have a valid prescription for. Now, in defending drug DWIs, the defense has a little more leeway to push back and say, is this really a level of intoxication? There's not that hard line 0.08 like you have in alcohol cases, and you can use that to your advantage. However, if your levels are extremely high, it can be a problem because you think about opiate use and stimulant use and some of the harder drugs. A jury is not going to look at that and say, oh yeah, but it's okay that they were driving. And marijuana is a special case because the blood test for marijuana will detect it if you've had it in the last couple weeks. Just because they get a blood draw that shows that you have THC in your blood does not mean that you smoked within a time period that's going to lead to any kind of intoxication. So the police are going to have to link that in other ways. Did they smell marijuana in the car? Was there just a lot of marijuana in the car when you were arrested? Even though marijuana is not criminalized in Travis County anymore, they can still get you on a drug-based DWI based on THC. Now, the outcomes in drug DWIs can actually be better than alcohol DWIs because there is so much leeway there for the defense. There's a lot of places where I can push back and say, was this person truly intoxicated? Now, that can be counteracted if the DWI video shows a person that is obviously really high, really can't answer questions. That's something that it might be a lot easier for the prosecution to show to a jury and say, yeah, this person should not be on the road. But the majority of cases are a lot more borderline than that. And in those cases, we can push back and say, there's no link between the drug the person took and the loss of faculties for driving. So in general, the outcomes for drug DWIs are actually a little bit better. in the outcomes for alcohol DWIs. None of this is legal advice, but if you do want legal advice on your specific case, you can visit us at atx.legal.